you never know when you start out what you're gonna do. And actually, I think that's probably one of the mistakes that people make. I like to call these things like anti-patterns. So in software development, we have these concepts of anti-patterns, which is something that seems to solve a problem, but the more you look into it, the more you realize that it actually introduces more issues down the road than it solves.
Okay.
And I think we have some of those in career development as well, and especially in regards to the software engineering field. Although I think a lot of these actually apply to other fields as well.
Okay.
So the first one, and probably the one that I think people make the most often, mostly because they do it without thinking about it, it's called career development by coincidence. And actually, I didn't coin that term. There's a fellow by the name of Eric Dietrich who put that one together. But career development by coincidence essentially is it's only thinking about career development when it's time to find a new job. So as you mentioned earlier, someone gets that first role out of college or out of university, and they ride it out for as long as they can, and they just kind of take what they get. They almost like they sleepwalk through it in terms of from a career development perspective. And then something happens, the company restructures, or someone approaches them, and it's an opportunity comes up to find a new job, and they take sort of whatever's available. And the problem with that is that essentially what you're doing is you're giving control of your career over to random chance. Like you might miss the perfect opportunity just because you're not looking for it because you're happy where you are, if you will. And so I think the way that you can kind of get past that, kind of turn that into more of a healthy habit, is actually to start having these thoughts about, what is it that you want to accomplish with your career? When you're early on in your career, it might literally just be, what do you want to do and where do you want to do it? But as you gain more experience, you'll have a more nuanced understanding of the things that really interest you. So what industries do you want to work in? What types of companies? What size team? What type of tech do you want to work on? Also, what kind of work relationship do you want to have? Like, do you like being employed? Would you rather be a freelancer or a consultant? Do you want to start your own business? Do you want to travel? And also, as you get further and further in your career, hopefully you start thinking also about what kind of impact do you want to have on the world? And all of these questions that you ask yourself will ultimately help you understand not just, am I in the right position, but also what is the right position for me?
Okay, cool. And I guess that what you are describing, it's easy to do if you know what's the next step. And again, you are like you are sharing the example. Okay, you want to be employed, you want to work as a freelancer, you want to work in the, I don't know, technology industry, or you want to work in the healthcare industry, even as a software developer. But you kind of know those things, and that's how you can decide. How do you go with the things that you don't know?
Yeah, and it's actually that leads me pretty well into the next one. I swear we didn't plan this, which I call it title hunting, and that is the thing. Like it's thinking about the job title. Yeah, it's like thinking about the job title that you're going to go for next. Like, okay, what's the position that should be next in my career? And I think that's problematic specifically for that reason, that you don't always know what it is you're looking for. Like you might have an idea, or you literally just might not know what you don't know. And I can actually give you a great example from my own career. Around the time that I was a senior architect at a fintech company in Peru, this was during my 4 years as a digital nomad, and really enjoyed that. But I got to a point where I kind of felt like I was kind of solving the same problems, the same technical problems over and over again, just at larger and larger scale. And don't get me wrong, for some people that is actually very interesting and can lead to some cool stuff. But for me, I kind of wanted to change things up and try something new. At that point, I'd had a one direct report. So there was an intermediate developer who reported to me. And I rather enjoyed that. There were aspects of it that I quite liked, sort of a new set of skills that I had to develop, and also just building relationships and mentoring somebody was really, really interesting to me. And so I thought, okay, well, let's optimize for that. And so when I got to New Zealand, I started trying to transition into development manager roles. So being in charge of a team and actually stepping back from sort of the day-to-day or the execution, and focusing purely on team management and being that multiplier. And what I did discover through this experiment was that, yes, I do actually enjoy building relationships and mentorship, but all the other stuff that comes with management, like the budgets and working with other departments and some of the politics, if you will, or some people would say what you call politics, I call relationships. But all of those aspects, I could kind of like, I can take it or leave it. And so then I said to myself, okay, so I have something I like. What experiment can I design around this? How can I sort of design my next role around this, the mentoring and the coaching and those aspects? And I thought, oh, wait, I could become a coach. And so did some iteration on that, and ultimately now I've become a consultant. I've actually created my own business, but I could also just as easily have gone over to a consulting company and applied for a role there. And so that's one where it's not on the it's not on the chart. Like you don't see this senior architect to consultant. Like it's a strange jump to make, but it's because I wasn't focused on the title that I was going after. I was focused on, well, these are the aspects of my work that I enjoy. How do I get more of that? Or how do I minimize something that I feel is detrimental, and so on?
Okay, that's good. That's a good one. And also I think that if you go on job title hunting, then you can get trapped in going to an organization that, even though it has the job title that you're after, it means doing something completely different. In one company, one job title might be one thing, and in another company, that job title can be another thing. Completely different.
That's a really good point. And also then you're essentially accepting that, right? So especially if it's a larger organization, it's almost like it's very easy to fall into the trap of then letting the organization dictate your future career progression, because they probably will have a progression of roles. So if you get senior engineer, then there are like these 3 options that are open to you at this company, and so on and so on. And so then you're back on that sort of career development by coincidence track.
Okay, cool. So first thing was career development by coincidence. Second thing, it's like job title hunting, like kind of things to be aware so you don't do them. What would be the third point you were mentioning out of the 4?
Yeah. So the third one I've called flying solo, for lack of a better term, to be honest. I'm not happy with this one, but the short version is flying solo is where you do not involve other professionals in your career development. So you take it on by yourself. Oftentimes you'll do it under the radar, and so this is you realize you're not happy at your current job, or you want to take advantage of some new opportunity. And so you just kind of start putting out your CV and talking to employers or recruiters, and you don't tell anybody what's going on. And then after a few weeks or months, you come to your boss and put in your 2 weeks or your 4 weeks notice. And I think this is a big mistake. It's a mistake I've made many times, not least because, well, I think the big one is that you're missing out on a huge opportunity. This won't apply to everybody, but I think in a lot of businesses, in a lot of company cultures, your manager really should be your ally in your career development. Not least of which because they actually have an incentive. They want to keep you happy and keep you at this company. And it's not about going to your manager and saying, I'm unhappy, or I don't want this, or I want this title, although you can have those conversations. I think it's really more about sort of what you want to learn. What are the new skills you want to explore? What are the new challenges that you want to try on? Because your manager can be looking out for those opportunities. They can delegate new responsibilities to you. It's sometimes your career development doesn't even necessarily involve like a title change or promotion. It literally is just you get new skills that you can develop.
Okay, cool. So your suggestion would be, don't do flying solo by trying to do your career development progression by your own, but go and talk to your manager and see what new responsibilities or new skills you can gain on your actual job before going out there to the market and trying to find that somewhere else.
Yeah, and I've even had I've had actually, so this last role that I had conversations with my manager constantly about what I actually wanted to get out of this arrangement, and I made it very clear that I actually by this point, this was about a year ago, a little under a year ago, but right when I was hired, I said, look, realistically, I want to get into consulting. I think I see a path here. I think we can do great work together, and I think there's a lot that I have to learn here. And if we can make that happen here, that's great. But over time, it kind of became clear that my future wasn't really as a full-time employee at this company. And not only did my manager support me, he actually helped me come up with the agreement template that I use with my clients. He continues to pull for me. He's trying to help me find new clients. Like he's invested in my success, even though I'm no longer employed at that company anymore. And I've built, I've definitely come out of this with a great friend, but also a professional connection for life, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And
that's not necessarily like, I don't want to say like, oh, that's going to happen all the time. There's been a few where I've been a journey that didn't go as well.
No, definitely, I agree. But me as a recruiter, if I ask a candidate why you are changing jobs, and if they tell me, well, because I don't have opportunities to grow in my current company, I will probably ask them, okay, what have you tried in order to grow in your company? What like, okay, let's say that you're a manual tester and you want to do automation. It's like, okay, what have you done in your current company to try to implement test automation? And if they say nothing, and they haven't tried to learn anything on their own time, why another company that doesn't know you at all will be confident that you will learn what you have to learn with them if you haven't tried to learn it in your current job or in your own time? So I think it's important, again, to take ownership on your career development strategy and plan in order to then get the support from others. But if you don't do it yourself, why someone else will do it? Even though they might be interested in you staying with them and learning new things, if you don't show initiative, they won't show initiative either. So it's important to put
absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
And that is and that's also like, things are not going to get handed to you. But when you talk to your manager about your career development and the things that you want to learn, it's not necessarily, hey, what can you give me? It is, I want to learn these things. I have some ideas. Your manager can help you come up with additional ideas and also help you plan out the strategy. But the execution will ultimately be up to you. No one's gonna say, okay, from this time tomorrow, you're going to be working on this new thing. You're going to be coming up with stuff, and you're going to be having this negotiation and say, hey, I think we can do this. This would be neat. And you kind of get the go ahead, or you say, well, let's redirect that into something else. But yeah, you have to have these conversations, and you have to take the initiative.
Yeah, I completely agree. You have to take ownership and being able to have those tough conversations, because I guess that reason why most of the people don't do it, it's because they're afraid that they're not going to have the opportunity to do it. So then if they are not going to be able to do it, they get exposed. So their manager will think that they're going to look for something else somewhere, and then they might not get some other opportunities. I guess that the exposure thing makes it harder in order for people to be able to do that, and they usually say, I will go somewhere else and find it somewhere else. But yeah, at the end of the day, you will have the same problem in the new company that you will go, because eventually you will want to learn new things, or you will want to do different things. And there is where you see a lot of people jumping and moving on different companies. Cool. And you mentioned that there were 4 points. What would be the last point then?
Yeah, and actually that leads beautifully into the fourth one, which I call comfort zoning. And it is like, applying for a new job is really scary. And you look at these job ads and you feel like the person that they really want to hire doesn't exist. Like, they have 8 years of Java experience, and they've done work with AWS, and they know all about databases, and they know this and that and the other. And you're looking at this list going, like, oh, and they want to pay market rate for this person. And I get this a lot, especially from junior developers. They'll be applying for a role, or they'll be looking at a role, and they'll say, gosh, there's so many things in this list that, like, I don't know, or I've only just barely been introduced to. And to be honest, I think that's okay. Having put out these listings before, and having spoken to a number of companies, because I do sponsor junior developers. I mentor them also, and I also sponsor them. There's a distinction between those two, that we might cover at some point. But short version is I will act as a sponsor to some junior developers. And so I have these conversations with hiring managers as well. And the fact is that these job ads, they're looking for a unicorn. Like, yes, if they find the person who has all the skills, that's maybe great. Actually, I might even challenge that. I might even say they don't want the person who has every single thing on that list. But it is very much like a wish list. But kind of what we were talking about before, managers do expect their employees to grow. They do expect to invest in their team members and their developers, and they want their developers to learn new skills. So as long as you are capable of doing, I would say, the majority of the things in that list, and you can demonstrate that you have other skills that you can bring to bear, or you have transferable skills, or you're just such a great person, then I think they'll have confidence that you can develop everything else that's sort of deficient, if you will. At any rate, you know, if you could do every single thing on the list, you're probably overqualified anyway, and they'd be underpaying you.